Welcome back to the Odd Shopper YouTube channel. I'm Isaiah. I'm coming to you from Nashville, and I'm going to break down this weekend's action at North Wilkesboro, which is a sentence I never thought I would ever be saying, but here we are. Somehow, shockingly, the NASCAR Cup Series is headed back to North Wilkesboro for the first time since 1996. Wow. Anyway, sorry, it's just mind-boggling to me that we've gotten to a point where we can come back to North Wilkesboro. It's great for the sport, I think. Anyway, so last week we finally got back in the win column with William Byron at 10-1, which is a great hit. Obviously, it took some late race chaos for that to happen, but we did also have Ross Chastain on the card, who was leading the race late before getting wrecked out. So honestly, either way, I still feel kind of sharp on that one. Cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about the race preview for this track that we've never been to, at least in my lifetime. We're going to talk a bit about how you can get your name on Zane Smith's truck until May 18th, that is. And we're going to talk about Odd Shopper Insider Access, which is the only way to get access to my full NASCAR betting cards. It's going to be a fun video, and let's get started with the race preview. So this is the NASCAR Cup Series All-Star Race, which means that not the entire field is automatically eligible. So if you look at the odds board, which I'll pull up real quick, you'll see that it is a lot shorter than what we're used to dealing with. There are a couple notes to keep in mind with this All-Star Race. Number one is that it's a 200-lap event with only one stage break, which isn't really a stage break. It's just a competition caution at the halfway point. Number two, qualifying for this event is a little weird. We have first a pit crew challenge, which will determine the starting order for the heat races, which will then determine the actual starting order for the event. So it's a little bit like what happens at Daytona for the Daytona 500, except with the pit crew element replacing the normal one-lap qualifying sessions. The other thing to note about this is that there are no points to be paid. So the only thing drivers will really care about is winning the money by winning the race. So that means that their incentive structures are a little different. You don't have drivers getting conservative at the end of races or at the end of this race to go for points. There's no point to doing that. So that could make the late race a little bit more chaotic than usual. As for the track itself, North Wilkesboro Speedway is a 0.625-mile rough, flat, short oval. That means that we're going to look at four tracks as good comparators. Number one, Martinsville, another short, flat oval. Number two, Darlington, a high tire wear track that we were just at last weekend. Number three, Martinsville, I just said Martinsville. Forgive me. Number three, Richmond, and number four, Phoenix. Those are the comparators for this weekend's race. I'm going to be emphasizing results at those tracks. Cool. Before we get into the picks, let me talk briefly about Tipico. Have you ever wanted your name on a Craftsman Truck Series truck? Well, it may not be on the name rail, but it'll at least be on the truck somewhere. If you deposit at least $38 at Tipico Sportsbook, you'll get your name on Zane Smith's number 38 Ford at Mid-Ohio, and you'll get $150 back in bonus credits. And if you are a top 5 depositor at Tipico under this promotion, you'll even get a chance at VIP passes to a truck event of your choice. So you aren't stuck going to just this one event. In Mid-Ohio, you could actually go somewhere a little closer to you. You should act fast because only the first 300 depositors will get their name on the number 38 Ford. And for more details and disclaimers, check the article in the description. Cool. Now let me pull up the odds board. Great. So we're over at Tipico for these, obviously. Pick number one. Now, this is going to come as a shock to y'all because I've got a Team Penske banner in the back and a Ford fans parking sign back there, too. But our first pick is going to be Chase Elliott. Reasoning here, what kind of a storybook story, I don't know, would this be for Chase Elliott to win the race at North Wilkesboro, a track that his dad competed at but never won at, especially in a season where he comes back from an injury? I don't know. That's just me. I don't think NASCAR is rigged. I don't think they're going to set up for this finish like that. But, man, wouldn't it be cool? So we've actually got some math to back this up, too. Number one, Hendrick won all four of our comparator events, Richmond, Phoenix, Martinsville, and Darlington. Sure, it wasn't Chase Elliott ending up in victory lane in those events, but the team still looked really, really great at those tracks. They didn't dominate at Martinsville when Kyle Larson got the win sneakily, and they didn't dominate at Darlington when William Byron got the win also sneakily, but they had plenty of speed in both events, and they had cars running up at the front for the entire day. So I have loved the Hendrick Motorsports camp here. There's a decent chance I hit Josh Berry if he comes in from the open. I think they'll have plenty of speed, and we know that they've done that in the past. Number two is that Chase Elliott's number 9 Chevrolet recorded a top 10 at each of those events that I just talked about that Hendrick won, and Elliott's coming up a third-place finish at Darlington. Also, Elliott's no stranger to North Wilkesboro. He won his only start here in a late model race in, I think, 2010 or so. So, I mean, he was a kid back then. But we know that he can win at North Wilkesboro, which is more than we can say about most of the field entered for this race. Lastly, Elliott will get reps in late model events during the week. I don't know when this video is going up. Those late model events might have already been over, so you can probably check out the results to see how he did. But he'll get some reps at this track that's very important because he wouldn't have run here since, I think, the 2010s. So, yeah, I love Chase Elliott. We can get him at 14-1 at DraftKings. He's only 12-1 at Tipico, but the 14-1 for a story like this and a card this fast for a driver like Chase Elliott, absolutely. Give me that every day of the week. But it's not just Chase Elliott in our betting card. We have to talk about some other drivers. One of those other names is Christopher Bell. So the market has corrected slightly on Chris Bell after his early season success because he's kind of entered a little bit of a slump. But if you look at his performance at the comparator tracks, you'll find some solid results. So he ran P6 at Phoenix. He ran P4 at Richmond with laps led. He only finished P16 at Martinsville, but his Joe Gibbs teammates looked good. He also won at Martinsville last year. And he just got a P14 at Darlington, but there was some late race chaos. He overall had a pretty solid day going on. We know that he can manage the long run. That's what he emphasizes in interviews. With only one quasi-stage break in this event, I'm a big fan of Christopher Bell. I think there's a decent chance we get some really long runs here, and Chris Bell takes advantage of that. He'll also run the Truck Series race for Hattori Racing Enterprises. So like Elliott, he'll get some meaningful reps in before the main event. He's currently trading at plus 950 or 18-2 at Tipico. But if you're a member of OddsShopper Insider Access, I posted this line at 10-1. So that is a much better deal. Strongly recommend joining OddsShopper Insider Access to get the access to the best numbers that we post. So this is now, I'm going to pivot into my spiel for Insider Access. So if you use code ISInsider, that's ISInsider, you can get your first week of access for 50% off. And after that, it's just $19.95. So that means you can tail our bets because it's not just me posting in there. Aton has all of his parlays in there. Lindy posts all of his picks in there. Ben Rasa posts a lot of picks in there as well. And you also get access to additional bets. I only put my full betting cards for NASCAR in there. I think we get live bets in there sometimes. You get access to my bets as soon as I post them online, whereas I'll usually tweet them out a day later for NBA at least. You also get access to some of my betting models during the NFL season. So there's a ton of perks. I recommend signing up, using our betting advice to help you make the money you need to keep paying for the service. It pays for itself. Cool. Now, let me talk about our last long shot of the week. It's going to be Chase Briscoe. The Discord has a 4-driver card, so there's one other guy that you can find in there. He's actually also in the article. I'll also be adding a 5th driver from the All-Star Open later in the week, but I'm only going to be putting that in the Discord. So it'll end up being a 5-driver card. But Chase Briscoe is the best long shot on the board by far. Sure, he's only at 25-1 now, but I mean, look at how short the odds board is. I'm not going to just tout some guy with longer odds because he has longer odds. I think Briscoe has an actual chance of winning this race. Further, if you're in Insider Access, let me remind you about that. You got this at 30-1 at Tipico. So, yeah, there was a lot of money on the table with Briscoe. I think there was a decent amount of sharp action that came out on him that's caused Tipico to adjust their number. But the reasoning for this pick, aside from the market-based factors, Stewart-Haas Racing looked dominant at Martinsville after struggling earlier in the season. So there's a decent chance they just come out to North Wilkesboro and put up some similar numbers. I think Priest led the most laps at Martinsville after he started up front. Briscoe had the best driver rating for the event. Obviously, the results weren't there for either guy. They didn't win the race. But Stewart-Haas Racing looked real fast, and they could look real fast at North Wilkesboro this weekend too. Also, I mean, Briscoe won at Phoenix last year. I think that's a decent comparator for this track. I wouldn't be shocked to see him end up in victory lane, especially because points aren't something he has to worry about. It's just the money. All right, cool. Let me pull this odds board out of here. Now we will recap our picks. So number 1, Chase Elliott, 14-1 at DraftKings. Number 2, Christopher Bell, 18-2 at Tipico. You could have got this at 10-1 if you were at Insider Access. Number 3, Chase Briscoe, 28-1 at DraftKings. Again, could have got a better number if you're in Insider Access. It was 30-1 earlier in the week at Tipico. That's going to do it for this week's video. Please like and subscribe if you found this content useful, especially if I ended up making you some money by the end of things. As always, it's been a pleasure. I'll hope to see you next week, and let's win some more money after our Bullion Byron bet hit last week.